welcome. It's lovely to have you here for another cup of tea today. Well, it's been a pretty big weekend here in New Zealand. A lot of energy and emotion flying around the atmosphere, and not just the atmosphere, but then the spheres where we give voice. So the Twitter sphere, the Instagram sphere, I have no doubt the fake book sphere. I'm sure it's all going off over the same couple of things. The bullying allegations coming out of Parliament, which we did the cards on those last week before the tea was dropped. So I think that there definitely needs to be some more investigations carried out there. And then we had this documentary, Fire and Fury, drop over the weekend. So I watched that, and I also watched John Wick for the first time, and I have some thoughts. So let's have a cup of tea and get into them. So let's start with the spectrum of personality traits. This is probably the thing. I speak about wanting to be my true north, which I would imagine that makes me this version of me. I have a healthy level of narcissism. I have a healthy self-esteem, and I am balanced, and I come from my heart, and basically I'm a GC. The misconception I made for a great number of decades, maybe 38 years it took me until I realized that not everyone was like me. I had this misconception, this belief, this false belief that everyone else in the world was like me. So if I strayed up to this end of, being ugly, the narcissism, fury, control, if I stumbled up there and someone came to me who said, "You've victimized me, you've been really mean to me," and I could see it with my own eyes, then I would get feelings of remorse and shame and holy heck, what have I done? I never meant to hurt that person. And we could have some reconciliation. What I learned when I was about 35, 36, something like that, is that actually not everyone is like you, Kelly. Some people, when you're this person, going to give, allow them to witness the impact of their behavior and actions on you. Some people, the true psychopaths, they actually take pleasure at your discomfort. So yeah, thinking everyone is like you, that was something that, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of counselling, I think it would have been much more beneficial if that had have come out in the first session, just as a fact. So, Fire and Fury versus Tiger King. So I'm not sure who has or hasn't watched The Tiger King, but it was a Netflix thing that dropped and then blew up when the first March 2020 thing happened. So everyone was sitting at home and they needed to entertain us with something. The networks, Netflix, they wanted to make money. So they dropped this Tiger King thing, and I watched that, and I was like, I'm right. Carol effing Baskin, she killed her husband. And I have had that belief right up until I watched these people, the Behaviour Panel, on YouTube. So the Behaviour Panel are a group of 4 men who are basically, they work for the 3-letter agencies, they work for governments, G7, the whole lot. They're up there talking about body language, and they train the investigators of the 3-letter agencies in America how to interrogate and investigate and all of this stuff. So they're incredibly credible people, and if you go watch them, they'll tell you who they are and what they do. And I stumbled across this one called Carol Baskin, the Tiger King, Body Language Analysis. So I was like, yeah, man, I want these people to confirm for me with her body language that she killed her husband. He did not fly to Costa Rica. She killed him. And then at about 10 minutes in, one of the people says, Chase, tell me about that propaganda thing we texted about. And Chase then pulls out his little book, and he waves, pulls out his little book, and he said, this is a 6-step program developed for Psychological Operations Command to change and crystallize public opinion. So he went through his 6 steps. Number 1, create a small window of doubt or uncertainty. 2, develop doubt through targeted questions. That's for the viewer to question. Leave a cliffhanger. Number 3, introduce questions that enhance confirmation bias. 4, display information that confirms the bias on occasion. 5, reward the subject for having come to the conclusion, i.e. you figured it out yourself, you clever person, and that gives you the dopamine hit. Expose the subject to a negative event to solidify the bias at the end. So then the joke in that little episode is, Netflix stole your propaganda playbook, and they have produced this program step by step following these 6 steps, which are a 6-step program developed for Psychological Operations Command to change and crystallize public opinion. So they made the joke, we don't really need to go on any further to find out if she killed him. And then the guy said, well, no, just because they've edited it this way doesn't mean she didn't kill him. So, but yeah, if you ask me now, did Carol Baskin kill her husband? Hell no. She's kooky and interesting in her own self, and she's been edited a certain way to fit an archetype. However, nah. With all the information available to me via YouTube and Netflix, if I was on the jury, she didn't kill her husband. So yeah, when I just watched the show, both shows, the Tiger King, Fire and Fury. I just don't know why the voice comes out like that. Someone up there wants it to be said like that. Fire and Fury. So yeah, all I know about Fury is usually it's the absolute narcissists controlling you, psychopaths, that have the Fury personality trait. And usually it's the victim or the empath. Empath's a nice word for saying person who experienced a lot of trauma and now can pick up on energies in the air. That's my Kelly definition. So yeah, really it's just fire and fury up here, really. And this is here. And for me, freedom sits in the middle here, baby. That to me is what freedom means when you're aligned to your true north. So there was a lot of stuff, and then on the Twitter, this woman D, once I read this, I followed her. Just follow straight away. I'm against this current government, but not 1 ounce of my thoughts about it came from Telegram, Counterspin, or anywhere else. I saw what the F they're doing, and I don't like it. And then my answer to that was, correct, me too. Yeah, just let that me too sink in for a while, because that's a little phrase that's so connected with consent, informed consent. Actually, it's not even informed consent. Me too is all about consent. So anyway, back to correct, me too. The entire corporation of parliament, government, politics is controlled by psychopaths. I saw that with my own eyes, and that is why I attend protests. I don't bake, I don't knit, I don't crochet. I don't go to Brian Tamaki's church. I'm not a deceived Indigenous. I'm a decent Kiwi. So that was my little 2 cents worth on the Twittergram about what I think about being labelled a right-wing extremist, because I don't do any of those things you said they do, so I'm still not seeing where I get the tick. I get me a lot of ticks because I'm a very diverse person, but yeah, not getting any of the ticks defined by this process. So yeah, D, great, great speaking up for yourself. And I love that you spoke for yourself instead of speaking back about, but this bullying is worse than this bullying, but that bullying happened there, but blah, blah, blah. And yeah, you spoke for your heart and yourself. And yeah, I really am inspired by that. So the question for today. So when we talk about the New Zealand population, I talk about the approximate 6 million of us, the 5 million that were, not allowed to leave, and the 1 million that were not allowed to come back. So, have the New Zealand population been actively subjected to the propaganda program described by Chase in the Behaviour Panel YouTube video? So that's exactly the question. And we've got the cards over here that I shuffled earlier. And now we just have to do this cutty thing where we figure out which ones want to go on the top. And I believe it's these ones. Okay. So let's do our Kachina knife. The New Zealand public, that's the 6 million of us. Have we been subjected to this propaganda technique? What's the past? The history that led us to this, and what's going on at the moment between us? So the situation, what are we experiencing between that and that? The outcome. King of Wands. Some advice and some other advice. Okay, so I'm gonna just read these cards. Oh, and the other thing is I've done the New Zealand deck here, put them on New Zealand, so I shuffled them, and we're just gonna ask for these 6 million people in New Zealand, our potential population, with the events that have happened since late last week and over the weekend, with the bullying and fire and fury, what is New Zealand's collective energy on that one? Goddess of Death. It is number 13. I wondered that on Friday or Saturday. Death, Goddess of Death, end of cycle, beginnings, change, metamorphosis. So yeah, New Zealand is sick of this. Yeah, that's what that card tells me. No matter where you sit, on left or right, blue or red, any of that stuff, wear a face covering, don't wear a face covering, take the treatment, don't take the treatment, take 2 treatments, take 10 treatments, like wherever you sit, New Zealand is sick. So, yeah, the New Zealand public were duped. The 7 of Cups, you're handed a whole lot of emotional stuff. And look at those cups. It's all so... Some of you are offered riches. Some of you are offered snakes, like deception. This is the deception card. We were deceived. Correct. And so this is the question being asked. Was it actively done? And this is me. This is the current Prime Minister of New Zealand. And she sits in her throne, supposedly party above country. And this is the current Prime Minister of New Zealand's show, you know. This is her bag, baby. This is what she was born to do. And yes, she has done it. So I'd say she's probably got Chase's book. I'd say she's probably even, well, you know, if not her hundreds of people that work for her probably have the book with the bits highlighted and the little sticky flaggy things on the edge. Because yeah, when I used to work for people who needed me to help them with things, I used to do that for them. So yeah, I'd suspect that it's there. So what's the past that led to this? It's just the moon. That's the secrets, that's the deception, that's the unconscious, that's the subconscious. It's the moon is a tricky card. And yeah, it's all sitting there. So what's going on now? We've just seen it. New Zealand, the 6 million of us, we're sick of it. And that's what's going on now. There's this communication, like just communication assaulting everyone at the moment. And it's not going to, it's gonna intensify. There's just information everywhere, and information being prepared in this way. So what's the outcome? The outcome is the King of Wands. So for me, this is a fiery communication energy. And I think that's what New Zealand is going to have delivered to them. Someone who lives in their own heart centre and is able to calmly and clearly articulate this. We've all been duped, but there is a way forward. So the advice is communicate and celebrate you and your truth and your wins. Be like D. Speak your truth. Don't allow anyone to say that you crochet or knit if you don't. And speak your truth. I had someone come here on the weekend who said, how many people are there like me, sitting in government departments, biting my lip, swallowing down everything I hear around me out of a place of fear? I can't be the only one sitting there thinking that. And yeah, that's the fawn. I think that's the one we do when we're pretending to go along with what we don't agree with. So yes. And the secondary advice is this devil one. And it's just, so when you've been on the spectrum here, when you've done some ugly maybe, you know, I would have put Carol Baskin in prison and maybe cut her head off based on what I first thought. And now I'm like, I'm here. Leave the lady alone. Let her live her life, you know? So yeah, this is the advice. There will be ugly, but don't join it. So yeah, those are our cards for today. It is going to be a big week. And yes, let's just put that death card there. Death isn't death. It's not killing someone. It's not someone dying and leaving the earth plane. Death is a transformation. Yeah. Quite often when people come to me for readings and they're going through a divorce, a death card comes in. When they're going to lose their job, a death card comes in. It's transformation. It's changing things. And this system needs to change. This isn't, you know, anyone deceived and thinking that blue is going to be better than red. What I get, blue are just cleverer than red. Anyway, that's been a long one, and I am now going to go and visit the person helping me get my veggie pots together. Have a great Monday, and we will see you all again tomorrow.